The Goat House is back with the best fits for the best free agents that are somehow still available. These guys could really help out a team, especially a team that is trying to contend or already a contender. Let's break it down. Jadeveon Clowney, one of the very best available right now. The Panthers moved on from him just after the draft as they drafted a pair of guys and they signed Patrick Jones in free agency as well. So they moved on from him, and there's a long list of teams that could end up with Clowney, that could use Clowney to become more of a contender or maybe a Super Bowl contender, teams that need an edge rusher still. There's quite a few of them, like I said, but one narrowed down in this video, my absolute favorite fit is the Washington Commanders. Love him in Dan Quinn's defense. You know, Clowney is pretty scheme versatile, can play up or down. I think Quinn would use him both ways there. And they badly need a big-time edge rusher. I mean, this is a legit team that wants to get back to the playoffs, but more than just that, right? And they're a little bit lacking on defense right now, and especially at the edge position. You felt like they were going to get better at that position. Maybe they could still be in the running for Trey Hendrickson. It's definitely a possibility, but Clowney would make a lot of sense for them and give them that boost. I mean, he's not the best player in the world, but he would give them a pretty significant boost, in my opinion. Like right now, they might have to fight for a playoff spot along with other teams, and it might be a fight because the defense looking a little thin right now. But if you add an experienced pass rusher, proven pass rusher like this, it really gives them that boost. And look at the Detroit Lions. They pop in my mind next. Another team that badly needs an edge rusher. They kind of need one even with Aiden Hutchinson, but he's still trying to get back to his normal form, and he's still got a process, right? Looking at recent training videos, it's still a lot of summer left, though. But you could start talking about teams like the Packers as well. I mean, you could start listing off a lot of teams, but these mainly want to focus on my favorite fit. I would love for him to land on the Washington Commanders here before the season starts. A few receivers that we have to talk about, and one of them is Keenan Allen, a longtime vet, was once a star receiver, definitely does his best work from the slot. Surprising that he's still available, you know, with his experience, and he still played well even with the Bears mess that they had last year. He still was fairly solid. So he's got to be available because one of two things. He could be waiting for that right team or he could be waiting for that right price. I think it's more so the team maybe. So does he want more of a contender than the teams that we have listed? That's a possibility as well. But I would love the Steelers as a fit. It makes a lot of sense as, again, plug and play fit, but exactly what they're looking for and what they need right now. So all of the above. Remember, they traded George Pickens. They're going to need another receiver. There's a little bit of buzz about Roman Wilson, which I liked him at Michigan. He could take that step up as that slot receiver, or they can just look for that proven veteran, you know, to make sure they have another guy. Do they bring in that quarterback? Could it be Aaron Rodgers? Could it be Kirk Cousins? We're not going to talk about Aaron Rodgers in this video because everyone knows it's either Steelers or retire at this point, but putting Keenan Allen right in the slot, having DK Metcalf outside makes a lot of sense. And the Broncos were my favorite Keenan Allen fit going into free agency. Remember, we predicted where a ton of free agents were going to go right before free agency started. We got a lot of them right. Not all of them, of course. And Keenan Allen I had with the Broncos, and now that feels a little less likely, but I still love that fit. And they could use maybe a little bit more of a proven slot receiver. I don't know if they're dying to go do that, though. So those are the teams that stand out the most for me in terms of fit and potential landing spot today. Amari Cooper, still available. He was recently with the Buffalo Bills, only for about a half a season. It felt like they were going to get him back, but then boom, they signed Josh Palmer. They already have a number of receivers, and very recently they signed Elijah Moore, so it doesn't really feel likely. I love the Cardinals as a fit. They're not a team that is desperate for a receiver, right? They're not desperate. They have some guys that can play, led by Marvin Harrison Jr., which we think he's going to be able to do a lot more than just play, right? He's going to be a special player. Hopefully, can stay a little more consistent. And they have other guys that can play, though, right? But they definitely could benefit from adding someone else. I do think they like Greg Dortch a lot in the slot. I think they can get better at that slot spot. So maybe they can add Keenan Allen. And Dortch is solid, but they could get better. But I just think they love Greg Dortch. So I think they want him in there. Michael Wilson's a guy that's solid. He can play inside. He can play outside. This feels like a high-end rotational guy. And they have some more pieces as well. But Marvin Harrison Jr., they need another legit guy to pair with him. And you wonder what Cooper has left in the tank, but he's still a smart, solid, experienced receiver. It would make a lot of sense, and I felt like the Cardinals really improved their defense on top of what it was already a good defense. So now they have to pay attention a little bit more to that offense because they could go places, right? They can get to the playoffs, maybe win some playoff games right now, but they got to make sure that offense is more consistent, so it makes sense. And I put the Steelers there as well. I feel like they'll be looking for another receiver, but you could put maybe the team like the Jets in here. There could be a few teams that could end up being sneaky, but I do really like that Cardinals fit. Gabe Davis, somewhat recently released by the Jacksonville Jaguars, so that was a bad deal. Did not work out, did not play well last year, was also either playing injured or injured, obviously. So this is a guy teams would have to bring in for a visit to give a physical to make sure he passes and he's good to go. And there's two teams that actually had a visit with him right now. So kind of boring we're putting those teams up there, but from the get-go, I kind of like the Giants as a fit. There are some connections there at Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, the GM, the Buffalo Bills background. Gabe Davis once was a very solid receiver for the Buffalo Bills. So the Giants, who could use another outside receiver, it makes some sense there. So I go with the Giants. The Niners, to me, don't really need Gabe Davis, even though they don't have Deebo Samuel. I mean, totally different receivers, but they don't have Deebo Samuel, but they have other options at the receiver position. Maybe some they worry have durability concerns, so they could use another one, but they brought him in for a visit. So who else can we put in here? I mean, we could put teams like the Steelers, the Jets, as possibilities here. The Cardinals for a guy like Gabe Davis, but reality is a team's going to have to bring him in and kind of make sure he passes their medicals to be able to sign him. So these teams got a head start on it. No other teams. There's teams that had a while to do it now, and they haven't done it. So these are the most interesting. The Giants just make the most sense. If there was no visits for Gabe Davis, I feel like the Giants still would make the most sense there. So if they had a visit with them, they didn't sign him yet. Maybe he didn't pass the physical, so maybe that doesn't happen. But that's the most logical landing spot and fit because of the connections. And there's a little bit of a need there. They don't need a high-end guy. They need someone like Gabe Davis. So for all those reasons, it makes sense. Brandon Scherff, longtime NFL guard of the Jacksonville Jaguars, has been very, very solid for several years. In the past, some durability things have popped up, but he's a little older now. Maybe he's only going to play for an X amount of dollars, but we'll see. He would be a starter for several teams, and he would really help a team. And the Ravens, I don't get any sense that maybe they'll do this. I think there's a possibility, but I just love the fit. This is a team that really can contend for a Super Bowl. They want to be as good as they possibly can be. And really the only question mark, if there's any, it's one of the best rosters in football, is offensive line. I'd say the interior offensive line. They did a good job adding guys, young guys that are ready to step up over the years, and they've added some guys in this year in the draft that they did a pretty good job. But they could improve with a guy like Brandon Scherff. For an example, Emory Jones, I'm really excited about him. He played tackle pretty well for LSU, but there's some talk about him moving to guard and having a lot of upside there. He could possibly start at guard for the Ravens right away, but maybe he's not ready. Maybe he can be a backup at tackle and guard right now, be a long-term solution as a starter. It would just make sense. Kind of just giving you scenarios here. It makes sense for Scherff to come in there, be a starter, and make that team better. If he gets injured, you have other options, of course. And their offense line coach, George Warhop, was actually Scherff's offense line coach in Jacksonville for a bit, so there's a connection there as well. So the Ravens are a team that can win the Super Bowl, so why not get as good as you possibly can be when you have the opportunity. I like the Bengals. I like a long list of teams. There's still a lot of teams that could use a guard. The Seahawks, the Texans, the Cardinals. Could name some more teams as well. But the Bengals make some sense. Even though they drafted Dylan Fairchild, they added some other pieces as well. They have some other pieces in there as well that could possibly fill in. But you get better here at the right guard spot day one. You don't have to worry about rushing anyone that maybe isn't the best starter, or maybe that's a rookie that isn't ready yet. Or maybe they are, we'll see. But the Bengals could make some sense as well. I really love those two teams to fit. But I did mention the other team, the Seahawks, still, I feel like, even though they added Zabel, they still definitely could use another guard. But, Cardinals perhaps, Texans, depending on who's moving, who's playing guard and tackle. They got guys that can play either or, so we'll see. But I love these teams as a fit for sure. A couple corners to talk about. Rasul Douglas of the Buffalo Bills. He's an interesting one because early in his career, just couldn't figure it out, was going from team to team. It wasn't working out with this team. Was hopping around from team to team, basically. And then he's on the Packers. He starts playing very well. The Bills trade for him. He feels like he's playing just as well, if not better, right? And pretty good for the Bills for another year, and now he's a free agent. And I think that's the issue and why he's still sitting around. He could want some money that a lot of teams aren't willing to pay because maybe in the back of their minds, like, this is the guy that didn't work out in a lot of schemes, a lot of teams. He only works out maybe for some, but it feels like he's actually improved at the same time. But I think that's what it is. I feel like there's teams that are a little hesitant with him, and he's a little older, and he's not going to play for dirt cheap, right? I look at the Seattle Seahawks. They actually have shown some interest in him. Doesn't mean they sign him, but because of that, and we've talked about in trade candidate videos, the Seahawks are a sneaky team to watch for a corner. Not really talked about a ton when it comes to corners because everyone knows they have Witherspoon and they have Woolen. But again, Witherspoon's a guy that plays 50-50, give or take, percent of his snaps inside and out. So they do badly need another true outside corner. Mike McDonald likes to mix up his coverages a bit, runs a lot of zone. That's Rasul Douglas is a very solid, smart zone coverage corner. So for several reasons, it felt like the Seahawks made some sense there. And then the Falcons also, they really added to their secondary, right? But they still could use an outside corner, the last piece of the puzzle. They're going to run a bit of zone coverage as well. And they don't have a lot of needs left here. So I could definitely see them being interested in a guy like Rasul Douglas. I would put a team like the Packers in here, going back to the Packers. But right now, it feels like they're going to keep Jair Alexander. They brought, in Nate Hobbs, and they have some other pieces that could play, that played for them in the recent past, some young guys as well, but veteran guy like Keyshawn Nixon. So if they move on from Jair Alexander, then I would shoot the Packers up to the top of this list, perhaps. And there's just some other teams as well that I could see. Raiders, Rams, these teams still could use another corner, but Rasul Douglas, a veteran corner to watch for. Former Chargers corner Asante Samuel Jr., still young, still solid, still has upside, pretty good playmaker. The reason he's still available, there is some injury concern from teams. A lot of teams have actually brought him in, and I heard he hasn't passed for some of those teams, so it didn't really seem like a major thing until this offseason. It's kind of being blown up a bit, so I heard the Dolphins have shown interest. I'm pretty sure everyone's heard that, and they badly need a corner. They need a corner even if they end up keeping Jalen Ramsey, but the point is they're probably not going to keep Jalen Ramsey. He's probably going to get traded. We all know that. So they really, really, really need a corner, and then they've showed some interest. It's really going to be all on if he passes a physical. Maybe not every team is concerned because it didn't really seem like a major concern for him, up until this point. Like people kind of labeling him, and he does have some durability concerns, but I don't know if is he this injury-prone guy? I guess that's debatable. So, but the Dolphins make some sense. Battling a corner, showed some interest. I labeled the Panthers as a fit way before free agency started, so I like to include them here. I feel like they could still use another corner. Right now, their projected outside corners are J.C. Horn, who's awesome, but he does have durability concerns, and I guess the argument is, do you add another guy with durability concerns? But I have a point. And they have Mike Jackson, who's wouldn't start for every team. He's decent. So I feel like you need, and they have other guys, but it's not the greatest room. J.C. Horn is great if he's healthy, but in terms of the room, it's not the greatest room. So you need another guy from me that could start or potentially start, and it feels like a really solid fit in their zone-heavy defense. They want, Ejiro Evero wants to run more zone. They actually ran a little bit of man last year, but typically, he wants to run more zone. Here's a zone corner for them. That's a pretty decent playmaker. Still has some upside, just has some injury concerns. So I think they made some sense. Seattle could make some sense here. I like the Packers as a fit before free agency, but again, it feels like they're going to keep Jair Alexander. So do they really need someone right now? That's debatable, I suppose. Raiders still need someone. I don't know if that would be a great fit. Rams could use someone still. We talk about the Falcons, and I'm sure there's a few other teams in there as well. But Asante Samuel Jr., I'd imagine signs before the season starts. And we pair the two top free agent running backs together here, Nick Chubb and J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins had himself a season last year for the Chargers, and Nick Chubb just a few years ago was known as one of the better backs in football. Yes, he's lost a little bit of a step last year, looked a step slower, but seems to be good working out in the offseason. So some two veteran, experienced, solid running backs available. The reason I paired them together, kind of have the same thoughts with teams. The Bears probably, you would think, end up picking up one of these guys. You would think they wanted to draft one, obviously. Talks about them trading up for Ashton Jeanty didn't work out. And there's some rumors recently they tried to trade up for Travion Henderson, didn't work out. Then they end up waiting a long time to take Monaghan from Rutgers, which he could end up being sneaky and help them out a lot, right away. Definitely a possibility, but Ben Johnson really values the running game. He said it's not going to be exactly what the Lions offense was, but I think you really got to improve those running backs there. But I understand they want to do it for the right price. They don't want to spend big on these guys, but they have to be the top landing spot for these top available running backs. They both do have injury concerns, so that is the concern for teams right now, but really, the Bears have to be the best fit because they're the team that probably needs a running back the most, for their offense, what they're trying to do, and just kind of missing on, out on the draft where they wanted to take, even though they did draft one. The Broncos probably don't add a running back because they added R.J. Harvey and they have Audric Estime. I mean, there's two guys right there with upside, and they have other options as well. But at the same time, they didn't get the running back. Their top choices of running backs, and R.J. Harvey, it seemed like, was up there for them. But in the draft, they were trying to trade up for Travion Henderson as well. There's some rumors about them trading up. Same with the Bears, trading up for Ashton Jeanty, which we knew was going to be pretty much impossible, and that was proven. But my point is, right now it feels like they have like a rotation, like a group of guys. So maybe they want to add someone else to be a part of that, since right now they can't add that legit every down number one back. Add a guy that could be part of that rotation. Sean Payton does love himself a good running back rotation, a running back room. So they kind of make some sense. I'm not really counting on it. And the Commanders could be a possibility. They waited a little bit, a long time in the draft to take one. I feel like they got a damn good one in Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I think he's going to, as long as he gets the opportunity, I think he's going to end up being a steal and make an impact for them. And as long as they don't add another, I don't really want them to add another running back because I want to see Brian Robinson Jr., Austin Eckler, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Rodriguez even looked pretty good. McNichols even looked pretty good when filling in last year. So they got a pretty decent room, but I could see them. I can just kind of see it, but I'm not counting on it, nor do I really want it to happen, just because I want the collection of backs they currently have, including the rookie who I'm a fan of, to get snaps. But the Bears do make the most sense for these top available running backs. It's just how available will these guys be during the year? But I mean, it's so that the price, if it's a cheaper cost, then it's worth it, right? So it's all dependent on the cost for these guys. Maybe they only want to play if it's a certain amount of money, and then maybe it's just not worth it for a team because they're probably not going to play a full season. But even the Bears really don't need them to get a crazy amount of snaps. DeAndre Swift is, even though they need a running back, he's a solid running back, probably could be even better in Ben Johnson's offense than he was. It sounds funny because Ben Johnson got rid of him at one point, but he's going to be better in that offense than he was in the last year Bears debacle with that coaching staff. So I think everyone could agree they do make the most sense. But if some rumors about the Jets trading Breece Hall, then they could trade him and sign one of these guys, so that could make some sense as well. There always could be some surprises. A lot of these guys in this video can end up going to a surprise landing spot. So just kind of want to go over my best fit. So I don't know if it's actually full-on predictions. I think they make a lot of sense. Otherwise, I wouldn't do them as my best fit, meaning I think they're very realistic. So we'll see. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments. This was a fun one, something different. We got a lot of videos still rolling out, even though it's that kind of dead time of the year for the NFL. It's not dead here. We got you. But that'll do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.